Purple shoots responsible finance. Let me tell you what they mean to me. My name's Jules. I run the Single Mums Business Network, and I met Purple Shoots, Karen, specifically about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. My story in adversity, credit scoring, started around 10 years ago. I had a very, very strong work history from age 14, 15, 16, full-time working, and I never took a day off in 20 years. And I didn't expect that to change once I had my daughter outside of maternity leave. My very naive view of motherhood was that I would put my child into childcare and continue with my job. And then I entered this world of actually childcare doesn't quite marry up with a working day. And also, of course, schools closed for 13 weeks of the year and annual leave is only 4 weeks of the year. So there's huge gaps to fill to enable you to continue working full time. I did, of course, ask my employer for some flexible working so that I could leave in time to get back to my daughter before childcare closed. And the response was that that didn't fit with the needs of the business, and my contract was until 5:30. So it's kind of constructive dismissal in a way. It's been covered quite well since, actually, and things are changing in terms of flexible working, but we're not there yet. And it's certainly not a safe space to go into motherhood knowing that you can continue to work within your skill set and salary range, and ideally as many hours as you want to as well. So what happened then was, after maternity leave, instead of returning to work full time, I did find a job quite quickly. I was looking for something similar so that I wasn't adversely affected financially. But actually the competition is rife. When you enter that world, you realise there's, I think, around 800,000 mothers looking for the same kind of flexible working, very skilled, very capable. So the job I ended up in was 12 hours a week, bookkeeping, and at the time the minimum wage was around £6.50, something ridiculous. So my salary took a massive drop. I didn't know there was help out there for things like mortgage interest, and the benefits world was one that was new to me. I'd never experienced it before, but I obviously did some research and find out how I could survive and what help I could get, whilst still being absolutely determined to pick up where I left off. Professionally, I was studying towards a law degree, again wanting to upskill and improve my prospects, knowing that I would be a single mum. And I'd also designed a product as a necessity entrepreneur. So I did this very low paid part-time work, and I was in receipt of benefits to top up my income. But as has been really brilliantly reported on recently by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, when you're in the benefit system, it's not actually enough to cover your overheads. And whilst you can obviously speak to debt agencies to look at reducing other credit commitments, you have to pay your basic overheads of living, and that's just not covered. So for me, the first thing that went wrong was my house was repossessed. Again, I did speak to the mortgage company. I didn't know there was help towards mortgage interest payments. They were extremely helpful, and they told me that I could withhold rent for a few months, and they would take charge of the property. And it's a long story, but basically, as soon as they took charge of the property, they repossessed it and sold it for like a 20,000 deficit. So my credit score was ruined overnight. My income was negative overnight. It is a negative income when you're on benefits and working part-time. So every month is deciding which six out of 8 bills to pay, basically, and borrowing to cover the shortfall. Now, of course, being poor is a very expensive business. As soon as you're in adversity and as soon as your credit score is adversely affected, your expenses go up in terms of borrowing. You're charged fees, you're charged fines, you're charged higher APR than you would be if things were okay. So it's very expensive business being poor, and you very, very quickly, once in adversity, fall deeper and deeper into adversity. But you do keep borrowing because A, you need to survive, and B, you are, when you've got a strong work ethic, you are determined to get yourself out of that situation sooner rather than later. So fast forward, on completing the law degree, I realised that the barriers remained in terms of qualifying employment. It was still about presenteeism. The childcare issue still wasn't fixed. I mean, this is 5 years later now of really suffering, bailiffs, suicidal thoughts. And, you know, my business, I did have responsible finance initially for the business. The way it was set up meant that it all went in one go on one PR campaign, but I still couldn't actually improve my finances or grow with the business as I learned more about my market. So Mike checked up on me, Mike Lewis. When he did, it was good timing because I was on the floor and pretty much ready to give up on life. I was only here for my daughter, existing physically, but very much dead inside. And he introduced me to Karen, and Karen then was able to offer me responsible finance regardless of my adverse credit rating. She recognised, Purple Shoots recognised, that your credit score does not reflect you, but it most certainly reflects what you've been through or what's happened to you. So what they do is they talk to you as a human being. They look at your prospects, what you're doing, you know, your skills, your abilities, your business, how it could grow, your personal finances, and where perhaps things are difficult where they shouldn't be. And they just loaned me a very small amount of money, a very small amount of money. It's all I needed. It was 3,000, I think, I exhibited, and I consolidated a few small payments so that my outgoings were less, which made me better off each month. So Purple Shoot saved my life. They enabled me to grow professionally as a woman. They now, as a single mum with a 10-year-old daughter, I do not receive any benefits, any support. I am self-sufficient financially. You paying everything out of my own income and paying tax. And I think that this is really important to recognise how the smaller responsible finance lenders can really help somebody escape a trap and get on the road to financial recovery and paying things back and being economically active, as we like to say. But it's never been about needing upskilling or incentivizing. It's always been about needing barriers removed, barriers to finance, barriers to work. And I really thank Purple Shoots from the bottom of my heart, and I always will, for recognising that. They also mentioned I could mention the book. So Breaking Out of Benefits Jail is a book that I released later last year. Again, it's just lots of in-depth insight in there into the trap that you fall in once you're in benefits in terms of negative income and the kind of stigma and humiliation as well, but then ways to get out of it, you know, business networking, tips and advice on how to grow, who to go to, things like that. And it's designed to help. So thank you, Purple Shoots. If you are able to support Purple Shoots work, please do, because there are quite literally millions of us, I'm sure, who need it. Like I said, your credit score reflects what's happened to you. It doesn't reflect you. And the more people recognise that and the more organisations recognise that, the more able we are going to be to help ourselves once we face adversity. So thank you and keep up the great work, and I will always support you for the rest of my life.